We're here in the booth of my gallery, the Emerson Dorsch Gallery, and with some work that I'm one of the featured artists. And my name is Onajide Shabaka. I've been in Miami for a good number of years before all the art happening. Actually, I moved to Miami in 1978. And I'm part of the art of Miami from the very beginning. I used to run MiamiArtExchange.com, and now it's been archived, but I had been involved with a number of community organizations, you know, Ulite Arts, of course with my own little meetup group I used to have, and I used to have my own art space over in Wynwood, and which I had for about 3 years, I guess, and had exhibitions with local artists, and including some artists from out of the country, Canadian artists mostly, and did that, like I said, for like 3 years. Miami Art Exchange is still available online. I have one article I need to put on there. I don't use it very much anymore because mostly it's an archive at this point, but it's still there. And it was started, I believe, around 2007. And I stopped using it on a regular basis probably a couple of years ago. So, it's been around for a good while, well over like 15 years maybe. It was very active. Then I had to stop doing that because I wanted to focus on my own art practice. Because I wasn't doing that, and my involvement in art in general goes back a lot of years. I'm not young anymore. So, I needed to focus on my own work. And so that's what I decided I was going to do. And, I'm happy I'm able to do that because keeps the mind active, keeps the body active. I would say over the past 10 years or so, I've done some residencies, and so that's part of what's involved. But what happens is I have a walking practice. And as I walk, sometimes I gather things while I'm walking, but a lot of times it's just the ideas that are generated by me seeing, some small thing like a small turtle that I see on the walking trail near where my studio is located, or some plant, unusual plant, and that will take me on an investigative research to find out something about it and its history. And so with these pieces that are here in the show, I did a residency in Mexico, in central Mexico, and so there was a small pyramid there. It's called La Cañada de la Virgen. And so as a sacred site, I felt like it was, well, actually what happened was that I was there with one of the archaeologists who worked on the site, and a small group, it was about 6 of us. And everybody went off into another area talking, actually pretty far away, but the air became very still. And I heard them talking far away, and it sounded like they were talking right next to me. And that was a very eerie kind of feeling, and so I just felt that, the spirituality of that site made itself manifest. And so I became more interested in Mesoamerican culture as a result of that. Although I was interested in it before, but even more so now. And in particular, that site which is outside of the city of San Miguel de Allende. And so that's why there's the pyramids there. But also, well, on the other piece, it's got the shaft in the middle, because at the very top of that pyramid in Mexico was a bundle. You know, they bundle up the deceased, and so there were actually two bundles there, and the oldest bundle was 1,000 years older than the actual site, so it had been brought there. And one of them was what they called the hierarch, who was an older man, and then there was a young girl who they called the young warrior, who was about 14 or 15, you know, teenage. So there were those two bundles that were there, but in the very top of that pyramid. And so that's why I always, when I make the pyramid, I try to leave a space for that, you know, the mystery. You know, for me, that's an important thing. Well, you know, I started off as a photographer. You know, I studied photography, have a degree in photography, but even there, I was still doing drawing and other, you know, like collage type works, not so much painting. Although I use mostly watercolor now. I just love the way that the water manipulates the pigment, you know, as opposed to oil paint. You know, I don't find oil paint that interesting to do. And so I started incorporating, you know, more collage and working with found materials to do, you know, collage. And so my work has changed, but in some ways it's still the same, because I'm still kind of doing the same things in my practice that I was doing years ago. Because I had my first solo show in Los Angeles, no, it was actually San Francisco, back in 1970, you know, and that show I had drawing, and I had collage in that show. And I was still an undergraduate at that time, so I was still studying. So, you know, but I'm still doing the same thing. So I guess how my work changes is as I travel through life, you know, I gather more information about the world, and then I try to incorporate that into my art practice through visual elements. And sometimes people know what they are, but sometimes they don't know what they are. But for me, it's not really important for me to explain to them what those things are. You know, some of that is about, it's like a prompt to say to the audience that, you know, they need to broaden their horizons to understand, you know, about like the vultures. You know, that's something that I have incorporated a lot. I don't have the vultures on this one, it's on the other one. And because people just look at vultures and think that they're ugly or something like that, you know, but vultures are important for the environment. Actually, vultures and the mushrooms both function in a very similar way, you know, and I think that's the reason why I'm interested in both of them, you know. Although I've been interested in vultures for a very long time, longer than the mushrooms, but the vultures, you know, that's a long time interest.